During military, all the boys were rushing to bring water to the campus bell. But you, with shining eyes, stared at the ice-cold drinks. After hesitating for a moment, you picked up a bottle of lemon iced tea from the ground. Then you looked at the campus bell, Tsuruoshi, with anticipation. Su, would you like to drink this water? Tsuruoshi was startled for a moment, then showed a disdainful expression. She instinctively thought you were trying to win her. You call yourself a simp, but not even to spend on a bottle of cold drink. And using others' drink, shaking her head, Tsuruoshi coldly replied, "No thanks, I have my own water." "That's great." You couldn't wait to and drank the lemon iced tea in one go. It was so refreshing. On such a hot day, you were already terribly thirsty. Drinking this big bottle of iced tea felt like reviving your... Seeing this, Tsuruoshi was dumbfounded. This guy actually drank the water meant for her. Only then did she realize he genuinely asked. Turns out, he was serious. At this point, you picked up another bottle of green tea. "Su, would you like this green tea?" Tsuruoshi froze on the spot, shaking her head instinctively. Her expression was a bit blank, and so this repeated several times. In front of Tsuruoshi, you drank all the drinks from over a dozen bottles in total. Meanwhile, the other simps who bought these drinks watched in frustration as you finished them all, clenching their fists in silent anger. "Congratulations, host. You've earned the money blessing reward. Now, host can earn 10 you. Finally done," you burped contentedly, feeling like your stomach was about to burst. If it weren't for the task, no matter how thirsty you were, you wouldn't have drunk these drinks for the sake of saving face. You calculated in your mind, earning 10 yuan every minute. 1 hour is 600. 1 day is 14,000. 1 month is 430,000. 1 year is 5.18 million. Ha ha ha, just entered university, doing nothing and still earning millions. You ignored the curious gazes of others, cheerfully taking big strides away from heading towards your dormitory, watching your departing figure. Tsuruoshi became more intrigued. As a privileged girl, she was long used to people trying to please her, but never had anyone treated her like this, as if she was invisible, even drinking up all the water given to her. If it weren't for the other male students still coming over to check on her, she would have doubted her own charm, had declined. Meanwhile, as soon as you were 3 roommates immediately gathered around with their phone. "Lao Lin, you've gone viral." You looked at their confused expressions and curiously asked, "What happened?" The 3 didn't respond. Instead, they handed their phones to you. On the phone screen was the Yangcheng University Campus Discussion Forum, and the top trending title was strikingly obvious. "Shameless. The water given to the campus." This guy drank it all without hesitation. Attached below the post were several pictures. It was you standing in front of the campus bell, drinking down over a dozen bottles of beverages. The photos were taken at just the right moment, clearly capturing your baby face and Tsuruoshi's elegant beauty, creating a stark contrast, like a toad standing next to a swan. And the person who posted this was none other than the guys who brought the... That's right, they exposed your so-called baby face, which sparked heated discussions among the male students. "Shameless. Are you a cow?" You gulped down over a dozen bottles. Look at Tsuruoshi's shocked expression. She was almost stunned by this fool. This post received thousands of likes and tens of thousands of replies. Without exception, all of them condemned your behavior. Some even speculated conspiracies, saying you did this on purpose, just to get the campus bell's attention. "Lao Lin, you're something else." One of your roommates nudged you with his elbow. "Why didn't I think of that?" Clearly, they also thought you did it on... You quickly waved your hands. "I swear I didn't do it on purpose. Do you believe? What do you think?" The 3 roommates laughed. You shook your head helplessly, not bothering to explain further. After all, the innocent need no... This post was obviously made by Tsuroshi's group of simps. Their goal was to ruin your reputation. However, you didn't care too much about it. Ever since you got the system, your entire mindset had changed. Now the only thing that mattered was how to spend 100,000 as fast. The 15-day military training ended quickly, and you had saved up exactly 100,000 yuan. After counting the money, you sat up on your bed, looking at your 3 roommates lying across from you. "Guys," you said, "want to go out and eat something?" Roommate Cao Ming suggested, "Let's go." "Lao Lin, let's have hot pot. My mouth has been tasteless for days." The other 2 also agreed, enthusiastic, but the chance to treat was snatched by Yang Chinian, the local You didn't mind? There would be plenty more chances to spend. This was no big deal. Everyone was on the same page and immediately took a taxi to a proper hot pot. Just as they sat down, roommate Yang Chinian suddenly spoke up. Oh, right. My little sister is also in our. I just messaged her. She's bringing her roommates over. You guys don't mind, right? Upon hearing this, Cao Ming's eyes lit up. Brother-in-law, is your sister good-looking? Yang Qinian smiled helplessly. My sister looks all right, but she has a roommate who's quite pretty. Just don't drool all over the place when you see her. Hearing this, you nodded but didn't say anything. Having girls join for dinner was definitely a good thing. While waiting, the group started chatting. Before long, the topic shifted to you, Lingfeng. I heard that in the last few days of training. Tsuruoshi was watching you. Did you guys exchange contact info? During training, the other roommates were assigned to a different squad, so their knowledge about you was purely based on rumors, which made them extra curious. Hearing their questions, you lifted your teacup and took a sip. Then you smiled and said, I'm waiting to become young Master Yang's brother-in-law. How could I dare to get the campus bell's contact? Just as everyone was laughing and joking, Zhang Chao suddenly spotted something. He quickly turned to you and said, Lao Lin, look, isn't that your girl? Following Zhang Chao's finger, soon, you saw a few girls just walking in. Among them was Tsuruoshi. Standing beside her were a few other girls. All of them looked young and beautiful. They were probably her roommates. It really is her. Everyone instantly recognized Tsuruoshi. So should I call her over and have them join us at our table? Looks like they're here for hot pot too. Cao Ming smirked and looked at you. Why are you looking at me? There's nothing between us. You shrugged helplessly. Tsuruoshi was indeed beautiful and was exactly your type. But that incident last time really wasn't intentional. However, at this moment, Yang Qinian shook his. Today, we might really have to fight. What do you mean? The three of them looked at Yang Qinian in surprise. Before he could speak, a sweet voice was heard, coming from the shop entrance. Brother, we've arrived. The three turned their heads. The girl who spoke bore a striking resemblance to Yang Qinian. She happened to be standing next to Tsuruoshi. She was one of the girls who had entered with her. At that moment, Tsuruoshi also happened to look up, meeting your gaze. Both of them were stunned. Tsuruoshi's face was filled with shock and she had never expected to run into this guy again. Under such circumstances, you looked at her expression and couldn't help but grin. It seems like fate keeps bringing me, and Tsuruoshi across from you was still filled with shock. She never imagined she would meet this guy again. Under such circumstances, Yang Qinian's sister didn't notice anything unusual. She eagerly pulled Tsuruoshi to sit down opposite you. However, Tsuruoshi's gaze remained fixed on you. It seemed like she wanted to whether the guy in front of her was really the same one who had teased her before. With a slight smile, she spoke. What a coincidence. Hearing Tsuruoshi's words, the three of you in the dormitory immediately understood, but Tsuruoshi's roommates were confused. Ruokshi, do you know him? I don't. Originally, they thought Tsuruoshi would bring up what had happened, but unexpectedly, she had no intention of mentioning. This only made the atmosphere even more awkward. Brother, have you ordered yet? Perhaps sensing the awkwardness, Yang Qinian's sister was the first to speak up. Seems like not yet. Wasn't I just waiting for you all to arrive before? Waiter, the menu, please. Hearing his sister's question, Yang Qinian smiled awkwardly. Then he waved to the waiter. After receiving the menu, he politely handed it to the girls. Ruokshi, what would you like to eat? Yang Qingqing looked at Tsuruoshi and asked warmly. Tsuruoshi glanced at the menu, ordered 2 vegetarian dishes, and then ordered 2 large cups of milk tea. Ruokshi, why did you order 2 cups of milk tea? Yang Qingqing looked at Tsuruoshi in confusion. The milk tea here comes in large cups, and we're about to have hot pot later. Be careful, or you'll be full from the milk before the food even arrives. Faced with Yang Qingqing's question, Tsuruoshi simply smiled. Then she turned to look at you. It's fine. This classmate here has a good appetite. Although Tsuruoshi didn't say it outright, that past incident had spread across the entire school. Almost all the freshmen knew about it. Not to mention, her roommates were directly involved. Hearing Tsuruoshi's words, memories they had long forgotten suddenly resurfaced in their minds. They glanced at Tsuruoshi, then at you. The blurry face of the boy in the suddenly matched the person in front of them. So, he was the guy who stole Tsuruoshi's water? And not just that, he had chugged over 10 bottles of drinks in one go. With Tsuruoshi ordering 2 milk teas now, to prevent him from stealing her drink again. Ruokshi, could you have mistaken him for someone else? Yang Qingqing widened her eyes and asked in disbelief. thinking back to military training when their entire dorm had been furious about your water-stealing antics, calling you a clown, saying you were only doing it to get Tsuroshi's attention. At this moment, the man their entire dorm had united against was now standing right in front of them, and he was actually their brother's roommate. The three in your dorm, hearing Yang Qingqing's words, lowered their heads even further. What a disgrace. Just moments ago, they had been teasing you but now they had gone completely quiet. Yet you, the one who started it all, faced the doubtful gazes of four girls without a hint of worry. Instead, you revealed, a bright smile showing off your neatly arranged teeth. Let me introduce myself. My name is Lin Feng. The three girls present all turned to Tsuroshi, waiting for her response. If she still refused to forgive Lin Feng, then they would also stand with Tsuroshi against him. That's a nice name. Didn't react as expected by storming off. Instead, she actually complimented your. Then she gently extended her hand to shake you. My name is Tsuroshi, as in tides, not as in sunset. Seeing that the two involved parties had let go of, everyone else finally breathed a sigh of relief. The awkward atmosphere instantly disappeared. The group started introducing themselves. Everyone had a great time at dinner. Cao Yang even joked around with one of the girls. After settling the bill, they all gathered at the entrance of the. Yang Qingqing suddenly clung to Yang Qinian's arm and acted, brother, I'm out of foundation. Can you buy me another one? Another one? Didn't I just buy you one last month? Hearing that Yang Qingqing wanted him to pay, Yang Qinian immediately shook his head and, besides, Mom and Dad give you 50,000 yuan for, you give me 20,000, so how would I have any money left? Yang Qingqing let go of Yang Qinian's arm and put on a serious face. I don't care. If you don't buy it for me, I'll tell Mom and Dad that you've been bullying me at school. It was obvious that Yang Qingqing often used this kind of. Her brother seemed all too familiar with this routine. Hearing her words, Yang Qinian immediately gave in. Fine, I'll buy it, okay? Then he turned to the three of you. Do you guys want to go to the mall together? Cao Ming and Jiang Chao both shook their heads. Are you kidding? We're totally broke. Going shopping with rich kids like you would just be self-torture. The other two girls also said they weren't interested. Seeing this, Yang Qinian turned his gaze to you. Old Lin, are you coming? You nodded. Sure, I'll go with you. I need to buy some things too. Great, then you're coming with. Yang Qingqing immediately grabbed Tsuroshi's arm and made the decision for her. Tsuroshi sighed helplessly and could only agree. Half an hour later, the four of you arrived by car at a high-end mall in Yangcheng. As soon as they stepped inside, they were dazzled by the array of luxury goods. If it weren't for the system-bound funds, Nia Deng wouldn't dare to shop in a place like this. With just a 2,000 yuan monthly allowance, you couldn't even afford a single bag here. Brother, I also want this lipstick. Yang Qingqing picked up a lipstick and turned to Yang Qinian. Yang Qinian instinctively checked the brand at the counter. It wasn't a luxury brand. Then he checked the price. Only then did he breathe. 500 yuan? Fine, I'll buy it. With a wave of his hand, he scanned the code and paid. Hello, miss? Can I get a whole set of this? Yang Qingqing looked at the sales assistant and pointed to the items in the. Hearing this, Yang Qinian panicked. The difference between buying one that he definitely understood. Yang Qingqing, don't push your luck. Buying an entire set. Do you want your brother to starve this month? Oh, my dear brother. Just pay for me first. I'll pay you back next month. As she spoke, Yang Qingqing clung to Yang Qinian's arm, showering him with affection. She knew her brother was the type who gave in to softness. Look, my face has tanned so much. If I don't take care of my skin, I might not be able to get married in the. Do you want to take care of me for life? Hearing this, Yang Qinian immediately gave in and quickly nodded. Fine, I'll buy. Your brother isn't short on money. Are you kidding? If my sister can't get married, I'll be stuck supporting her forever. Haha, that's more like it. Smiled and continued. This skincare set is really good for repairing sun damage. You and Lin Feng should get a set too. Her words made you a little tempted. After military training, your skin had gotten significantly darker. Although you never aimed to be a pretty, now that you had money, treating yourself well seemed reasonable. Plus, you still had a spending task to complete. How much is this set? You pointed at the skincare set on the counter. The sales assistant glanced at you. She quickly estimated that the clothes you were probably didn't add up to more than 500 yuan, but she didn't look down on you. She simply responded in a neutral tone, Sir, the women's skincare set costs 13,800 yuan. The men's set costs 12,800 yuan. If you buy both together, you get a 10% discount. After hearing the price, you couldn't help but sigh internally. The difference between P is greater than the difference between. Without the system, your entire month's allowance wouldn't even be enough to cover the price of this. But you didn't really care. You came here today with the goal of You needed to hit 100,000 yuan to upgrade your system. So you directly took out your bank card. Looking at the sales assistant, you said, "I'll take a men's set." You didn't pay for Yang Qingqing's set as well, because that would be foolish. Their family wasn't short on money. And besides, this was your first time meeting Yang. Your relationship wasn't at that level yet. Seeing you pull out a bank card, the sales assistant was surprised. He hadn't expected this guy to be so rich. But he didn't ask any questions. He simply took the card and went to process. Meanwhile, Yang Qinian and the others looked at you in shock. They hadn't expected you to be such a big spender, dropping 10,000 yuan just like that. Yang Qinian was truly astonished, because normally you didn't act like a wealthy heir at all. But the most shocked person was Suroshi. A guy willing to spend 10,000 yuan was the same one who drank someone else's water during military. And not just one, he downed over 10 bottles. Did all rich people have such strange hobbies? Brother, look at Lin Feng. He spends money without hesitation. Why is it so hard for you to buy a set for your own sister? Yang Qinian had originally planned to spend no more than 5,000 yuan today. But now, with his sister pressuring him, he had no choice. Fine. Here, take my bank card. The password is 66. Hearing this, Yang Qingqing immediately lit up with a smile. She sweetly said, "Brother, I knew you loved me the most." Saying that, she happily dragged Suroshi to the cashier. After the two left, Yang Qinian finally had time to walk up to you. He studied you for a moment. Then he sighed. "I never would have guessed, Lin. I thought I was the richest guy in our dorm. But you're even more loaded than me. No way. You can't just let me pay for dinner earlier. You have to cover half of it." Yang Qinian's facial expression, it was obvious he was joking with you. Yet you nodded and agreed to it. "But let's just pay half. When treating someone, it's about giving. After we finish shopping, I'll treat you all to afternoon tea." "All right then, since that's the case, I know a newly opened tea restaurant. But it's a bit expensive. Just don't regret it later." Yang Qinian nudged you with his elbow. Grinning mischievously, he said, "By the way, Nian, do you know where to buy good clothes?" You then asked, "You're so rich?" "Just go upstairs directly." The four of you left the cosmetics counter, heading straight to the clothing floor upstairs. After searching for, you finally found a men's clothing store. It took the initiative to pick a shirt for you. Although it was a bit pricey, it looked exceptionally good on you. You are 1.82 meters, and having just finished military training, your muscles were well defined, so you wore the shirt perfectly. Seeing you step out of the fitting room, Yang Qingqing nodded in satisfaction. She then turned to Yang Qinian and said, "Brother, look at Lin Feng's figure. He looks slim in clothes, but well built without them. Now look at yourself. You're still young, yet your belly is all. Don't you feel ashamed?" Facing his sister's constant criticism, Yang Qinian simply rolled his eyes, then sighed, "I'm not gonna lie. Old Lin, your physique is truly impressive." Meanwhile, Suroshi stood silently by the side. She looked you up and down, then turned and walked towards the pants section. "Roshi, wait for me." Seeing this, Yang Qingqing hurriedly followed her. "What are they doing?" Yang Qinian looked at you in confusion. "How should I know?" You shrugged. Moments later, the two of them returned, each holding a pair of pants in their hand. "Try this one." Roshi handed you the pants in her hand. Her expression remained indifferent, so that's why she was silent earlier. She was picking pants for you. Seeing this, you didn't know what to say. But when you turned your head, you saw Yang Qinian smirking, saying, "Old Lin, something's up." You ignored him. Roshi spoke again. "Go try it on. It should match your top well." You nodded, then walked into the fitting room. You had to admit, Roshi had a great sense of style. The pants she picked for you not only flattered your figure, but also paired perfectly with the top. After changing into the pants, your overall aura was significantly enhanced. Congratulations, host, for achieving a satisfying shopping experience. Reward 1 cashback card. Upon use, you will receive a cashback ranging from 1x to 5. The maximum cashback amount is 50, usable only once. You were stunned for a moment. Then a wave of excitement surged with who would have thought that shopping and having a satisfying experience would also earn system rewards? Old Lin, why do you have such a sly grin on your face? Just as you were thinking about how to maximize the of this cashback card, Yang Qinyan suddenly spoke, snapping you back to reality. His voice pulled you out of your thought. Not only Yang Qinyan, but even Yang Qingqing looked at you curiously. They had no idea why you were standing there grinning. You shook your head helplessly, then turned to the store clerk and said, "Please pack up all these clothes for me. How much is the total? Please calculate it for me." The sales assistant heard you and took out a calculator. "Sir, you purchased 2 tops and 2 pairs of pants and a pair of casual shoes. Total 38,000. You nodded? But the cashback card's maximum limit is 50,000. Using it now would be a waste. You looked at the sales assistant and asked, "Excuse me, do you sell belts here?" You already had enough clothes, so accessories were the next target. The pants Ruoshi picked for you earlier required a belt. Following the sales assistant, you quickly selected 2 belts. Seeing that the total was still below, you bought a few pairs of socks. Adding everything up, the total came to just over. Seeing this, Yang Qinyan and the others were stunned. He looked at you and said, "Old Lin, you've spent almost 60,000. Is your living allowance really that generous?" Yang Qinyan couldn't help but click his tongue. His family was wealthy even by Yang Cheng's standards, but even he only received 20,000 a month as an allowance. You glanced at Yang Qinyan. Smiling, you said, "I made some money from stock trading recently, so I'm just buying a little more." You didn't mention your family background. Instead, you casually made up an excuse. "That's good. I thought Old Lin was some hidden rich guy, like those who get $1 million a month in allowance." Hearing your explanation, Yang Qinyan let out a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't family money. Otherwise, as a second-generation rich kid, Stan would have made him feel in. Congratulations, host, on successfully using the cashback card. You received a 4x cashback. After making the payment, you immediately used the cashback card. To your surprise, you got a 4x return. Although it wasn't the highest multiple, it was still quite good. But soon you realized another problem. Now, your hands were full of shopping bags. Thinking carefully, you already had everything but there was still 50,000 left. And Nienge, do you think I'm missing anything else? You've grown up this much and you've never encountered this kind of problem before. Before you always wanted to buy things, but now you have money, but don't know what to buy. Hearing your question, Yang Qinyan was stunned for a moment. Then he glanced at you. With a strange expression, "I think you're missing a thigh accessory. What do you think? Give me 20,000 a month and I'll be your little bro. I'll follow behind you every day calling you boss and saying 666. Isn't that a good deal?" As he spoke, Yang Qinyan even pretended to hug your leg. Frightened, you quickly stepped back. But honestly, the idea sounded pretty good. Having a rich second-generation heir would definitely feel amazing. Unfortunately, this kind of behavior would be considered cheap and the system wouldn't recognize it. "Stop joking." You pushed Yang Qinyan away. With a serious expression, you said, "Be real. What do you think I'm still missing?" Yang Qinyan looked you over again, then glanced at Tsuruoshi, a knowing smile appearing on his face. At first, you expected him to give you a useful, but seeing his expression, the 3 of you were speechless. "Feng, how much money do you have left?" At that moment, Yang Qingqing looked at you and asked aloud, "About 300,000. Why, you didn't hide it." You answered directly. No wonder. Yang Qingqing had a thoughtful expression. Having over 300,000 and spending 50,000 didn't seem like a big deal. Then he looked at you again. Smiling, he said, "Fengit, if you still want to buy something, I have a suggestion. I need to get my watch repaired. If you're looking to spend money, you could come with me and buy a watch." Yeah, hearing Yang Qingqing's words, Yang Qinyan suddenly had a realization. As the saying goes, the poor play with cars. Since you have so much money, shouldn't you get yourself a watch? Even Tsuruoshi, standing nearby, nodded. She added, "I kept feeling like something was missing. Now I know. Adding a wristwatch to your outfit would make it perfect." Hearing the 3 of them, you couldn't help but feel tempted. After all, what man can resist a luxury watch? Congratulations, host, for triggering a side mission. Please purchase a Patek within 24 hours. Reward for completion: 3 cashback cards. Failure to complete will prevent future-related side missions from appearing. All right, no need to think about where to shop now. For those 3 cashback cards, I have to get myself a Patek Philippe. Let's go. After receiving the system's task, you made a swift decision. bringing young Chinian and the others along, seeing how quickly you decided, as if you were just buying groceries at the market. The three of them couldn't help but feel exasperated. Originally, they were just accompanying Yang Qingqing to buy cosmetics, but somehow you had become the center of attention. They ended up feeling like your entourage, but they didn't mind. Being able to go shopping with a rich, even if they couldn't buy anything themselves, was still quite an experience. After leaving the clothing store, Yang Qinian started giving you a rundown on all kinds of luxury watch brands. Old Lin, since you're so rich now, when buying a watch, I definitely recommend Patek Philippe first. Patek Philippe isn't just a symbol for watch enthusiasts. It's also a status symbol for successful. For someone like you, this is exactly the kind of watch you should. Hearing this from Yang Qinian, you looked at him puzzled. You get 20,000 a month plus New Year's money and all that. If you saved up a bit, wouldn't you be able? Hearing this, Yang Qinian immediately looked devastated. His gaze turned toward Yang Qingqing. Being stared at like that, Yang Qingqing felt a little embarrassed. She raised her head and said indignantly, "What? Is it wrong for a younger sister to expect a birthday gift? Besides, when it was your birthday, Before she could finish, her voice started to weaken. "You've got some nerve saying." Looked as if she had brought up a painful memory. Before Yang Qingqing could finish, he stepped forward and accused her. "I worked so hard to save up some money, and you took it all for your birthday, saying it was to help me save up for but when my birthday came, you gave me a phone case, and it was used." Seeing Yang Qinian getting all worked up, Yang Qingqing quickly hid behind Su Roshi. Then she waved at a nearby taxi. "The cab is here, let's go." Yang Qingqing opened the door and quickly jumped into the back seat. She didn't want to deal with Yang Qinian's anger any longer. Seeing this, Yang Qinian had no choice but to calm down. He walked toward the taxi, but instead of sitting in the back, he took the front seat. Seeing this, you felt awkward. Originally, you wanted Yang Qinian to sit in the back. That way, Yang Qingqing making things less awkward. But now, you had no choice but to sit in the back as well. Since Yang Qingqing got in first, you ended up sitting next to Su Roshi. As you caught a faint scent from her, your heartbeat couldn't help but speed up. Half an hour later, you all finally arrived at the Patek Philippe boutique. Suddenly, Yang Qingqing pointed at a Rolls-Royce and gasped. "Why is Dad's car here? Wait, is Dad here to buy a watch too?" Yang Qinian muttered to himself. Then he turned to you and said, "Old Lin, you're really lucky. My dad has a Patek Philippe Black Gold membership card. If we use his membership card to buy it can save a lot of trouble. Most importantly, there's no." After listening to Yang Qinian's you feel that coming here today was the right. If you really had to wait for a month, the system task would have already. Then you would also have to say goodbye to the 3 cashback cards. "Brother Nian, please talk to your father and ask him to help me buy an entry-level watch," you said excitedly, without stubbornly insisting on. "Don't worry. It's just a matter of one sentence," Yang Qinian said confidently, patting his chest. Right after that, the 4 of you pushed open the door and walked into the Patek Philippe. It seemed that someone recognized Yang Qinian. Very soon, a female shop assistant led you to a VIP room. Inside the VIP room, you saw Yang Qinian's father. He was wearing a dark-colored suit, looking very refined and elegant. "You're here." Yang Tianming sat on a leather sofa. As soon as he saw his son and daughter, a smile appeared on his face. "Dad, these 2 are my classmates. He is my roommate, Lin Feng, and she is Qingqing's roommate, Su Ruoshi." After saying that, he turned to you and Su Ruoshi. "This is my father, Yang Tianming." You and Su Ruoshi quickly nodded and greeted Yang Tianming. "Hello, uncle." Yang Tianming responded with a cheerful smile. Then he looked at his son and asked, "What made you all think of coming to see me today?" Yang Qinian scratched the back of his head and smiled. "I came here with Lin Feng and happened to run into you. It's like this. My roommate, he wants to buy an entry-level Patek Philippe watch. You know how difficult it is to get one. And you happen to have a membership card." After hearing this, Yang Tianming immediately understood. He turned to look at you, showing a strong interest in the young man in front of him. Judging by his appearance, he didn't seem like one of those spoiled rich. He had always been strict in disciplining his own son. He didn't want his son to associate with those wealthy second-gen. "Dad, don't worry. Lin Feng earned the money for the watch himself." Hearing Yang Qinian's words, Yang Tianming's expression softened. He even smiled. "Do you have any particular model in mind?" You shook your head. I'm not very familiar with luxury watches. I'll leave everything to Uncle Yang. Yang Tianming was efficient. Before long, a store assistant brought over two exquisite and placed them in front of you. Haven't you always wanted a Patek Philippe watch? Today I'm giving you one. I hope you can learn from Xiaofeng. Hearing this, Yang Qinian immediately nodded. He excitedly said, "Okay, Dad. I will definitely learn from Lin." While the two were chatting, the sales assistant brought another display case. Inside were some women's accessories, such as brooches. "Mr. Lin, these are gifts our store has prepared for you. You can each choose 2 items as a gift for purchasing the watch." Hearing the sales assistant's words, you didn't reach out to pick anything. Instead, you looked at Yang Qingqing and Suruo. "Why don't the ladies choose? I'm not very interested in accessories. We 2 men don't need these accessories. Hurry up and pick something. After that, let's go for afternoon tea. Lin is treating." Yang Qinian waved his hand and said in an enthusiastic. Hearing this, Yang Qingqing didn't hesitate. She immediately started picking. She looked at the 2 most beautiful necklaces. "Ruokshi, which one do you like?" Surokshi hesitated for a moment, feeling a bit unsure. At that moment, you suddenly said the one on the right. The swan design suits her better. Suroshi's style was more mature compared to Yang Qingqing's. A more sophisticated design would match her better. In fact, Suroshi also liked that one, but she was too shy to say it out loud. After all, Yang Qingqing got hers thanks to her while her relationship with you was still ambiguous. She felt awkward taking advantage of you. "Then this one is yours. I'll take the one with the teddy bear design." Yang Qingqing didn't mind at all. She had plenty of accessories anyway, so one more or less didn't matter. Once everything was packed, the 4 of you said goodbye to Yang Chenming and left. "I didn't expect you to be so thoughtful." Su Rokshi's voice suddenly sounded beside your ear. Not straightforward. You were slightly stunned and asked in confusion, "Why do you say that? From high school until now, this was the first time you had ever heard someone use the term to describe you." Even though you denied being straightforward now, it was obvious that before this, Surokshi had always thought of you as one. Seeing your puzzled expression, Suroshi continued to explain, "Because earlier, you managed to pick the exact necklace I like and gave it to me. This proves you're not straight." Hearing the conversation between Suroshi and Lin Feng, Yang Qingqing, who had been joking around, also stopped. She turned her head and looked. Yang Qingqing suddenly grabbed Suroshi's arm and teased, "Brother Feng, think about it. Everyone else brings Suroshi water, but you just take all the water away right in front of her. If that's not being straightforward." Hearing Yang Qingqing's explanation, you were momentarily speechless. You asked back, "So in your eyes, if I don't act like a simp, does that make me a hardcore straight? Does that make me a... Why do guys always have to please girls? Of course, in a relationship, it's natural for guys to be more considerate. But just like during the Suroshi, you had water. So why did you let those guys buy water for you? And then you didn't even drink it. Isn't that just wasting resources?" Hearing these words, both Suroshi and Yang Qingqing were stunned, especially Suroshi. Because of her beauty, ever since she was young, all the boys around her had always obeyed her. No one had ever challenged her. This had given her a sense of superiority, making her feel that if a guy didn't try to who didn't know how to care for girls. But after hearing your words, she suddenly realized that her actions that day were indeed problematic. "I'm sorry." Suroshi's eyes suddenly welled up with tears. After saying "I'm sorry" twice in a row, she suddenly broke down. She turned and ran away, her long, fair legs striding swiftly. "Rokshi, wait for me." Yang Qingqing, not knowing why Suroshi suddenly ran off, or why the usually polite you had suddenly become so blunt. But as Suroshi ran further and further away, she could only chase after her. "Lin, are you okay?" Yang Qinian couldn't help but ask. "I'm fine, I was just saying what I thought." "What's wrong with Suroshi?" Seeing the situation unfold, you were also confused. You never intended to make Suroshi cry, nor were you trying to scold her. You were simply stating the facts. So why did both girls run off? "But Lin, what you just said was absolutely brilliant. You literally took Suroshi's water for yourself, and yet with the way you put it, it somehow became her fault. This language is utilitarian. I admire it." Yang Qinian is an optimist, the kind that never overthinks anything. "Do you think what I said is wrong?" You hesitated and asked with a bit of doubt. "Not at all. Nowadays, girls are just put on a pedestal. If anything doesn't meet their expectations, they call you a straight man." Yang Qinian seemed to relate deeply. He shared his own opinion, but soon he changed the topic. With a mischievous tone, he said, "But old Lin, I think you should focus on figuring out how to appease Tsuruoshi. If this matter gets out to Tsuruoshi's group of simps, you'll probably trend on the school's hot topics again. After all, you're now the most famous iron-willed get lost," you yelled at him in frustration. "If you keep this up, you won't get any afternoon tea." Facing your threat, Yang Qinian remained completely unfazed. "You spend so much money in a day, yet you still have money to treat me to afternoon tea. Old Lin, you're truly a rich man." Just then, a system notification sounded. "Congratulations, host. Your experience points have system level upgraded to level 2. Money blessing has increased to 20 yuan per minute. The next upgrade will be at 1,000 experience points. 20 yuan per minute. That's double the previous rate. This is amazing." You put your arm around Yang Qinian and said, "Come on. Xiao Nianzi, I'm treating you to afternoon tea. The kind that'll make you sick of it. Now that I make 20,000 yuan a day, it's hard not to feel invincible." 10 minutes later, you and Yang Qinian found a milk tea shop. After sitting down, Yang Qinian pulled out his phone and called his sister. He asked where they were. Unexpectedly, he found out they had already taken the bus. On the other end of there was a faint sound of a girl sobbing. Although it wasn't loud, both of you could tell that it was Tsuruoshi's voice. The two of you exchanged glances. Yang Qinian silently hung up the phone. "Old Lin, this time you've really broken Tsuruoshi's heart." Earlier, Yang Qinian thought Tsuruoshi was just throwing a tantrum. But hearing the sobbing over the phone, he realized that she was genuinely heartbroken. "I was just telling the truth. It's not like I did anything," you muttered helplessly. You hadn't expected your words to hurt Tsuruoshi this much. "Old Lin, if you aren't the definition of a straight man, I think you should figure out how to make it up to Tsuruoshi. Sure, we refuse to be simps, but don't go turning into a scumbag. If word gets out, you'll go from being a rigid straight man to a deadbeat scum. This will affect your entire and your dating prospects." Since it had nothing to do with him, Yang Qinian looked at you with a care, smiling smugly as he said, "Of course, if you treat me to a meal, I might consider asking my sister to find out what's really going on. After all, knowing your enemy is key to victory." You rolled your eyes. Annoyed, you said, "You think this is a war? Knowing your enemy, winning every battle. It's just a cup of milk tea. Take it or leave it." Seeing you give in, Yang Qinian immediately leaned close. "Milk tea works too. Something is better than nothing, right?" He then picked up the menu and ordered an extra large milk tea. He added all the toppings available. The final price came to 50 yuan. At first, he thought he was taking advantage of you. But later, he realized he was wrong. After the milk tea was served, the staff gave him an oversized cup. It was several times bigger than the usual milk tea. He had to use both hands to grip the bottom of the cup. Seeing this, Yang Qinian was instantly "Is this shop really this generous?" When leaving, afraid that Yang Qinian might spill the milk, he specifically asked the staff for a bag, but an ordinary bag couldn't fit this oversized milk tea. In the end, the staff had no choice but to take out a black garbage to help him carry the milk tea. Seeing this, Yang Qinian nearly lost it. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't. Truly, he brought this upon him. Half an hour later, you all took a taxi back to the dorm. Seeing Yang Qinian carrying a black plastic bag at the door, they immediately put down their phone and curiously asked, "Brother Nian, why did you bring garbage back?" "What garbage?" "This is the milk tea that old Lin treated me to." As he spoke, lifted his oversized milk tea out of the garbage bag. "Holy crap, did you rob a milk tea shop? Others drink milk tea, but you look like you're drinking a family-sized." Cao Yang and Zhang Chao couldn't help but start teasing him. Faced with their teasing, Yang Qinian didn't care about his image. He took a sip of the milk tea, smugly saying, "So what? My kidneys are strong. Any objections?" No. As long as you're not afraid of staying up all night." Milk tea is famously known as a late-night energy boost. Now that Yang Qinian drank such a big cup, he might as well stay up until dawn. To this, Yang Qinian was too lazy to argue. He sat down in his seat, took out his phone, and started inquiring about Tsuruoshi's situation. "Old Lin, it seems like Tsuruoshi has already fallen asleep. I heard from Qingqing that the blow you gave her this time seems quite serious. I think you should find some. Go and apologize to him specific." You nodded, without saying much. Actually, you never thought that your words would have such a big impact on Tsuruoshi. It seems that in his world, boys are too easygoing, but you're too lazy to think about it. You decide to apologize to Suroshi after a few days. Hey Lin, my sister wants to add you as I sent your contact to her. Young Chinian suddenly said, are you afraid I'll get together with your sister? Lying on your bed, you teased in a low voice. I actually want you to get together with her. That way, I won't have to be exploited by her. Anyway, you're richer than me. Supporting my sister shouldn't be a Yang Chinian joked back. Just then, your phone suddenly vibrated twice. You glanced at it. You saw 2 friend requests. One was from Yang Chinchin. Her profile picture was a photo of herself. The other, if you guessed correctly, should be Suroshi. Judging by the time, he must have added you before going. You accepted both friend requests. Then you opened Suroshi's moments to take a look, but you found out that he only displayed his moments from the past 3 days. And in these 3 days, Suroshi hadn't posted anything. Meanwhile, after seeing that you accepted her request, Yang Qinchin immediately sent an emoji. Then she said, "Hello, Fengge. Since you had nothing better to do, you started chatting with you. Both of you tacitly avoided talking about Suroshi. Besides small talk, Yang Qinchin also asked you about stock trading. She said she had and was looking for an investment channel. Over the years, besides save, she also kept taking money from Yang Qinian's living expenses. According to Yang Qinchin, she was just afraid that Qinian would turn bad, like other rich second. So she had no choice but to cut off, making sure he wouldn't be a rich second. That's why she kept squeezing his living expenses. After hearing Yang Qinchin's words, you glanced at Yang Qinian, who had already fallen. You couldn't help but feel something. Originally, you thought Yang Qinchin was exploiting her brother, but unexpectedly, she was actually thinking about him with good intentions. Having such a sister, Yang Qinian really doesn't know how lucky he is. Logically speaking, you should have agreed immediately. After all, it seemed like a good thing. But the problem was, you knew nothing about it. If you agreed, the money would definitely go to waste. So after thinking about it, you still refused. Seeing you refuse, Yang Qinchin wasn't upset. Everyone has their own choices. After chatting for a while long, the 2 of you ended the conversation. The next morning, the 4 of you joked around as you entered the tiered class. Inside, the classroom was already full of people. A dense crowd. There must have been at least 100 people. Lao Lin, the girls in our class seem a bit average, huh? Cao Ming's voice came from beside you. Instinctively, you glanced around the classroom. You noticed that many girls were dressed quite delicately, but only a few could really be called beautiful. Of course, it was just the beginning of college. Most girls were still quite simple. They hadn't learned how to put on makeup. Maybe they'd become prettier in the future. Once all the students had arrived, the counselor finally entered the classroom. Behind him, a few students carrying books followed. After placing the books on the podium, they greeted the counselor. Then they sat in the front row. You guessed that these students were probably trying to compete. That's why they were working so hard. The counselor stood at the podium and cleared his throat twice. The entire classroom instantly fell silent. Then he glanced around the classroom. He opened his mouth and said, "Hello, everyone. I am your counselor, Mr. Luo. I hope we can all get along well during these 4 years of and progress together. Most of you, I have already met during military training, so I won't give a lengthy self-introduction." Homeroom teacher Mr. Luo stood at the podium, speaking nonstop. Then he continued, "I will ask a few students to help distribute the text." Mr. Luo looked at the students sitting in the front row, the same students who had just helped carry the textbooks. While you were playing with your phone, waiting for the textbooks to be distributed, a delicate-looking young girl suddenly walked up to you. She greeted you, "Hello, classmate. My name is Song Yaki. Please take care of me in the future." You lifted your head and saw a fair-skinned face. With a sweet smile on her face, although she was not particularly, her figure was quite good. She was wearing a white shirt, looking bright and adorable. You nodded slightly, took the textbook from her, without engaging in much conversation. However, shortly after, you heard Song Yaki's voice behind you again. Zhang Chao, feeling a little embarrassed, lifted and greeted her, then quickly lowered his head again. Seeing this, Song Yaki smiled playfully, then turned and left, continuing to distribute textbooks to the next. Old Jiang was moved. Yang Qinian, who was sitting beside Zhang Chao, naturally noticed his reaction. He nudged him with his elbow and teased, "No way, right?" Although Zhang Chao was reserved, unlike his 3 shameless roommates, He was still outgoing enough to not usually stutter like this when speaking. If you have feelings for her, just say it. We brothers can help you raise her for a few years like a... He chuckled darkly. To be honest, I think Songyaki looks pretty good. She's definitely one of the top girls. You better not hesitate, or someone else will snatch her up first. Hearing Yang Chinian's words, Jiang Chao's expression suddenly turned cold. Songyakshi is not that kind of person. I went to the same high school as her. In my impression, she's a very hardworking and ambitious girl. Jiang Chao's words left everyone speechless. Raise her for a few years? Wanting to say something, but failing to find the word. When others praise her, they talk about how beautiful she is. But you, old Jiang, you praise her for being ambitious. You said what Yang Chinian was about to say. Jiang Chao's face immediately turned red. Actually, I wouldn't say I really like her. We weren't even in the same class. She probably doesn't even know I exist. I could only catch a glimpse of her when classes were over. So you get it, right? Jiang Chao sighed as he spoke. The three of you exchanged glances. Each of you knew what the others were thinking. Jiang Chao's situation was the classic case of wanting something, only daring to admire her from secretly harboring a crush. As the saying goes, if you keep simping, you'll end up with nothing. Old Jiang was in a dangerous situation. Just then, all the textbooks had been distributed. Mr. Luo's voice rang out again. Classmates, you all have your textbooks now. Please check them over. There should be a total of 12. Make sure none are missing. Next, I need to select some class leaders to help me manage the class. If anything comes up, I'll rely on them to relay the information. As Mr. Luo spoke, he picked up a piece of... He wrote down positions like class president. Hearing Mr. Luo's words, Songyaki was the first to step forward. She faced the students below the podium and introduced, "Hello everyone, my name is Songyaki. Some of you may have already met me while I was distributing textbooks earlier. I am here today to run for the position of League Committee member. Back in high school, I also held this position, so I have quite a bit of experience. I hope you all will vote for me. Thank you." Songyaki spoke sincerely. Her expression was genuine. She appeared confident and composed, unlike others who seemed a little uneasy. She was also very smart, knowing that the position of class president was... So she opted for the next best choice, running for the league committee position. You thought that the possibility and Songyaki ending up together was quite slim. Given Songyaki's personality, her standards for a partner would surely be high. However, seeing Jiang Chao staring at Songyaki with hearts in his eyes, you decided not to say anything. Since Jiang Chao liked her, as his roommate, of course, you had to... As for whether it would work out in the end, that would depend on fate between the two of them. After Songyaki finished her introduction, a few more students stepped up. There were a total of 7 class officer positions, and exactly 7 students had signed up to run. However, 2 less popular positions, Health Committee and Psychological Committee, had no candidates. Does anyone want to run for these 2 positions? Left with no choice, Mr. Luo once again scanned the classroom. He asked everyone once more. Seeing that no one responded, he considered assigning these 2 roles to the class president and league. Forget it. These 2 positions don't really have much work anyway. Just as he was about to announce that the class president and league committee would take on these extra... Suddenly, someone in the classroom raised their... This student, are you interested in running? Which position do you want to apply? Mr. Luo's eyes lit up. He quickly asked. Yang Chinian stood up proudly. He brushed his hair back, his face carrying a faint smile. Teacher, my name is Yang Chinian. I want both positions. Yang Chinian declared loudly. Both positions? Mr. Luo frowned slightly. His expression was a little awkward. Although these 2 positions were not particularly in all his years as a counselor, he had never seen anyone volunteer for both positions. Yang Chinian seemed to have read his thoughts. Suddenly, he grabbed your hand and raised, Teacher, actually, my roommate Lin Feng said he wants to be the health committee. Hearing Yang Chinian's words, you were stunned. When did you ever say you wanted to run for a class officer? But seeing Yang Chinian desperately winking at you, you had no choice but to go along with it. All right, in that case, Lin Feng will be the health committee member, and Yang Chinian will be the psychological committee member. If there's nothing else, this class meeting is dismissed. After saying that, as if afraid the 2 of you would change your mind, Mr. Luo quickly left the classroom without... Young Master Yang, why are you suddenly interested in being a class? These 2 positions don't even add extra credits, do they? I curiously asked Yang Chinian. Let me tell you something, but don't let this spread. Yang Chinian leaned in closer. He whispered, my dad knows the vice principal of our university. Technically, I should call him Uncle Wang. Uncle Wang messaged me yesterday. saying that the school is planning to reform the class starting next month. All class officers will be treated equally. Previously, positions that didn't earn. Now, the benefits are the same as the class. Tell me that isn't amazing. Hearing this, you suddenly realize the reason. No wonder Yang Qinian, who usually avoided trouble, was acting so differently today. Voluntarily running for a class off, so he had received insider information. In university, nothing was more important than academic credit. If free credits are up for grabs, why not take them? Old cow. Don't blame me for not including you two. After all, there were only two. I still plan to get a free meal from Old Lin. After saying that, Yang Qinian turned to you with a smirk. All right, lunch is on me today. You guys pick the place. Before Yang Qinian could say anything more, you immediately agreed. Sounds good, but we still. So you had to wait until the week before you were all free to go out for the meal. At that moment, you jumped off your bed, looked at Yang Qinian, and Brother Nian, do you know any good restaurants, the most expensive kind? Hearing this, Yang Qinian looked at you as if you were crazy. Old Lin, how do you still have money? He had personally watched you spend over 200,000 yuan, yet you still had money to treat everyone to a fancy meal. Not much left, but there's still enough to treat my sworn brothers to a meal. You didn't tell Yang Qinian the exact amount. Instead, you changed the topic. So do you know? Any top-notch restaurants in Yangcheng. The most important thing is that the food has to be. Yang Qinian thought for a moment. Then he patted his chest. With me, the Yangcheng expert, around, you don't have to worry about spending money. I know a restaurant where the head chef comes from a long line of royal court. The dishes he makes are absolutely top tier, but the price per person there is quite high. So, Old Lin, think you can handle it? You smiled and nodded, calmly saying, no problem. Disciples, put on your clothes, let's go. I'll take you all out for a grand feast. On the way to the restaurant, Yang Qinian suddenly seemed to remember something. He turned to you and said, Old Lin, we should bring 2 more. That restaurant serves imperial cuisine, and the meals are fixed per head. The smallest set menu is for 6 people. We need to call 2 more people. Hearing this, you thought for a moment. How about calling your sister? Yang Qinian nodded, then said, but we still need 1 more. How about I ask my sister to bring Suroshi along too? That way we'll have exactly 6 people. Seeing that you remained silent, Yang Qinian smacked his lips. Although you guys had some conflicts last time, it's been quite a while. She should have cooled down by now, right? Besides, after what Chinkin told me that day, I think Suroshi is actually quite pitiful. Enough, you cut him off before he could say more. Why are you telling me all this? Do I look like someone who holds grudges? If you want to invite her, we're missing 1 person anyway. You didn't really have any objections to Suroshi. But after what happened last time, you weren't sure if things would be awkward when you met again. All right, since you say so, Old Lin, then let's not pick them up ourselves. Seeing that you agreed, Yang Qinian immediately sent a tweet telling her that Old Lin was treating them and asking them to wait at the mall entrance. The 4 of you arrived at the mall, and as soon as you got out, you saw Yang Qinchin and Suroshi standing by the road. Both of them were holding a cup of bubble tea. Yang Qinian waved to Yang Qinchin and called out to her as you all stepped out of the car. Yang Qinchin whispered something to Suroshi. Then they walked over. Brother, this bubble tea is. Yang Qinchin handed one of the bubble teas to Yang Qin, then pouted and said, from now on, stop saying your sister is. Even though Ruokshi paid for these milk teas, I at least remembered to bring you one, right? Hearing his sister say this, Yang Qinian frowned slightly. He took the milk tea from her without saying anything else. As long as there's something, who cares who paid for it? This one's for you. At that moment, Suroshi also stepped forward. She handed the milk tea in her hand to you. You were momentarily stunned. You hadn't expected her to take the initiative to show good. This somewhat changed your previous impression of her. Thank you. You didn't hesitate. You took the milk tea from Suroshi's hand. Seeing this, Cao Ming and Jiang Chao both looked a little awkward. It must feel great to be cared for like that. Unlike us, a couple of lonely bachelors. The group then took a taxi to the restaurant Yang Qinian had mentioned. On the way, Yang Qinian excitedly started telling everyone about. Let me tell you guys, this restaurant has been in Yangcheng for over 100 years. It supposedly dates back to the Republic of China, and the head chef is also the owner of the restaurant. They only serve 18 tables per day, lunch and dinner. Each seating is fully booked, and each table must have at least 6 people. If you don't meet the head count, you can't eat there. Yang Qinian spoke with great enthusiasm. Anyone listening might have thought his family owned the place. If it weren't for the fact that my dad, the head chef at Huangyan, I wouldn't have been able to get a spot in advance. If we had to rely on reservations, we'd probably have to wait until next week. As he spoke, his face was full of pride. Sitting in the front, Yang Qin seemed to pick up. She curled her lips and mercilessly retorted, "If it weren't for Brother Feng, you talk like you could even afford to eat there." Hearing this, Yang Qinyan's expression froze slightly. "Yang Qin, would it kill you to stay quiet? Mooching off someone else's meal and still acting shameless, that's you." Watching the siblings bicker without mercy, I couldn't help but think of my sister studying back. Although she is a year younger than you, she is in the same grade as. Due to her poor academic performance, she could only stay back home to attend it. Her personality is quite similar to Yang Qingqing's. She is the bold and carefree type, the kind that looks down on you the moment you meet. Just thinking about that girl gives you a headache. I heard that her school has a 1 month. Right now, she's probably still baking under the sun. Just thinking about it is amusing. Standing beside you, Suro saw the faint smile on your face. For some reason, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Lin Feng, about last time. I'm sorry. Summoning her courage, Tsuruoshi spoke to you in a voice as light as mist. What did you say? You were just thinking about your sister. When you suddenly heard Tsuruoshi's voice, you didn't catch it clearly. I mean, last time when I called you a dense guy, I was too arrogant. I formally apologized to you. If possible, let me treat you to dinner tonight. Consider it as my way of making amends. Tsuruoshi hesitated for a moment, but eventually spoke up. At this moment, Yang Qimian and Yang Qingqing heard Tsuruoshi's words. They suddenly turned their heads around. They looked at Tsuruoshi in shock. They loudly asked, "Roshi, what are you saying? Do you know how much tonight's dinner will cost?" Even you widened your eyes, curiously looking at Tsuruoshi. If it weren't for completing the system task, you wouldn't come to such a place, even if you had money. But now Tsuruoshi actually said that she would treat tonight's dinner to apologize to you. Could it be that she is actually the one among the... Is she actually the richest I know, because I used to go there to eat often. Tsuruoshi suddenly dropped a shocking... You go there often? Not only were the four of you in the dorm shocked, but even Yang Qingqing looked completely dumbfounded. Having lived in the same dorm with Tsuruoshi for so long, she had no idea that Tsuruoshi's family was actually this way. And from the way she spoke, it seemed like she treated Ping just like an ordinary restaurant, as if it was nothing special. At this moment, you finally processed, thinking about it carefully, had actually exposed her wealthy background long ago. You remember last time when you went shopping at the mall, she showed no surprise at clothes costing, and she effortlessly helped you style, doing it even better than Yang Qingqing. Her taste in fashion was excellent. You don't have to be so surprised, she said. I always went with my dad, but our family is going to decline soon. Tsuruoshi sighed, her expression filled with sorrow. My dad's company ran into financial at the beginning of the year. Unless a miracle happens, it will likely declare bankruptcy by the end of the year. Her words cast a moment of silence over everyone. But business always has its ups and downs. You didn't take it too seriously. Even if they go bankrupt, her family would still be wealthier than most. Much wealthier. You shook your head and said, "No need for all that. I already said I would treat tonight, so let me do it." You directly turned down Tsuroshi's. You had gone through so much effort to get a cashback card for food expenses. How could you just give up this opportunity to Tsuruoshi? You had the system to exploit benefits. Did Tsuruoshi have that? So does this mean you forgive me? Seeing you refuse, Tsuruoshi asked again. Even he himself doesn't know why he cares so much about your opinion of him. Maybe it's because of your unusual actions during the military training. Maybe it's because your words last time made him truly realize who he is. In any case, for you, he has developed a subtle inclination to confide. Seeing the sincere expression in Tsuroshi's eyes, you nodded. What's there to forgive or not forgive? Speaking of, last time I was too direct with my words. I should apologize to you as well. You're not that petty of a person. Since the other party has already made a concession, you wouldn't hold on to your pride. Hearing your words, Tsuruoshi didn't say anything further. The atmosphere in the car became somewhat awkward. Fortunately, the car quickly reached the destination. Entering the Tianzihao private room, a woman with a graceful figure. May I ask what the big bosses would like to eat? The woman walked in with a charming air. She spoke in a teasing tone. Hearing this, you were a little confused. Do the waiters here speak so casually? Before you could respond, Yang Qingqing sitting opposite. And Lan, how come you're here? The woman named when she saw Yang Qingqing and Yang Qinian. I happened to be at the restaurant today and heard at the front desk, as the owner of this restaurant, I had to come over to properly entertain these big bosses. Yang Qingqing said a bit awkward. Ah, and Lan, you're joking. I'm no big boss. Haha, you're not a big boss? Your dad is the real big boss. The woman winked playfully. Is my dad that generous? It's my brother's friend. The woman winked with a sly look. She teasingly asked, my dad isn't that generous. It's my brother's friend. He invited us here for dinner. As she said, Yang Qingqing turned her gaze towards you. Hearing this, Anlan also curiously looked at you. When she saw your face, a flash of admiration appeared in her eye. To have such grace at such a young age. She was indeed no ordinary person. Anlan, let me introduce you. This is my roommate Lin Feng, and this is Su Roshi, Qingqing's roommate. And these two are my roommates, Cao Ming and Zhang Chao. After introducing everyone, Yang Qinian turned his gaze to the woman in front. This is the daughter of the Pinghe Huangyan restaurant owner, Liu Anlan. You can just call her Anlan. After Yang Qinian's introduction, you all stood up and called out Anlan. Liu Anlan didn't stand on ceremony. She smiled and waved at everyone. Anlan, haven't you been in Beijing? Why did you suddenly come back? Yang Qingqing asked, hooking her arm with Liu Anlan. Ah, talking about this makes me frustrated. My dad wants to open a branch in Beijing. Liu Anlan frowned. Sighing, she said, he wants me to go to Beijing to manage the branch, so I had no choice. I had to come back here first to learn from my dad. But I didn't expect that this would bring me here while you all were— All right, no more talking about that. What do you want to eat? I'll go tell the kitchen, Liu Anlan said with a smile. Yang Qingqing and Yang Qinian both looked at you. Since today you were the one treating, ordering food was of course up to you. Why are you looking at me? I'm not familiar with this place. You all order, You waved your hand, helplessly saying, this restaurant doesn't even give me— How am I supposed to order? Liu Anlan, she smiled and explained. Lin Chong, little brother. She smiled and explained. Lin Chong, little brother. You don't know. Our Pinghe Huangyan doesn't have a menu because each private room has a fixed set menu. For example, the signature menu for this is the Feilong Zai Tian cuisine. You can choose your favorite dishes from it to create a customized set menu. Liu Anlan briefly explained. Since it's your first time here, how about I help you choose? You don't have any special preferences as long as it tastes good and meets the system's required spending amount. Don't worry, Lin Feng, little brother. Big sister won't disappoint you. Seeing you agree so readily, Liu Anlan smiled charmingly. Then she turned and left the room to speak with the kitchen. After Liu Anlan left, the atmosphere in the room became relaxed again. Yang Qinian elbowed you playfully. How about it, old Lin? Isn't Anlan pretty? Yeah, she's pretty, you replied honestly. Compared to the youthful campus beauty, it seems like this older sister has more approachability. If you think she's pretty, you can try pursuing her. Don't be fooled by how mature she looks. She's only a few years older than us. And I heard Anlan has never had a boyfriend. If you manage to marry her, you'll be set for life. Live comfortably for the rest of your life. Living comfortably for the rest of your life, you thought. From what you know, Liu Anlan is the only child of the annual profit of Pinghe Huangyan is at least a small target. Whoever marries her could certainly avoid decades of hard work. But for you with the system, none of this matters. If you were really pursuing Liu Anlan, it would definitely be out of effect. Half an hour later, Liu Anlan entered again. She was followed by several waiters, pushing 2 meal carts. The table was filled with various dishes. There were more than a dozen plates. Under Liu Anlan's command, they placed the dishes on the table. Each dish was covered with a delicate white lid. Liu Anlan walked to the table and uncovered each dish one by one. Then he explained the name and ingredients of each dish. After the explanation, Liu Anlan did not stay here any longer. He had something else to do and left the private room. Looking at the large spread of dishes, the smell alone made it irresistible. You took the first bite of the dish in front of you. A satisfied expression immediately appeared on your face. No wonder he was a royal chef. The taste is simply amazing. You couldn't help but exclaim. At that moment, the system's voice suddenly sounded. Congratulations, host. You've earned a new experience. Reward, a food consumption cashback card. The county mission is also unlocked. Enjoy the royal cuisine. Once the host has finished the royal dishes to their satisfaction, the system will enhance the host's appreciation ability for having casually eaten a royal dish. You've earned so many system rewards. Looks like I need to eat out more often. That's great. The taste is even better than the last time I came. Seeing you dig in, Yang Qingqing couldn't help but pick up a piece of crispy duck and eat it too. She made sounds of appreciation while eating. She didn't seem like the rich second-generation type. Yang Qingqing looked at Yang Chanian like this and just glared at him. She didn't say anything. Clearly, she had long been used to seeing Yang Chanian like this. Brother Nian, pay attention to your image. Even if it's delicious, you can't eat straight. Also, Brother Nian, at least leave some for us. Seeing Yang Chanian devouring the food, Cao Ming and Jiang Chao couldn't sit still. They both grabbed their chopsticks and started eating although there were more than 10 dishes on the table, there was really no need to fight over them. It's the competition to eat that Yang Qingtong and Su Roshi looked at the four people who were frantically grabbing food. They instinctively exchanged glances and showed a helpless expression. After several rounds of drinking and tasting different flavors, the four of you slumped in your chairs. You went out to settle the bill and were about to return to when you saw Yang Qingqing helping Su Roshi walk out from the private room. Yang Chanian, standing beside them, appeared somewhat at a loss, unsure whether he should help Su Roshi. Seeing you appear, Yang Chanian quickly called out, "Old Lin, come over here. Su Roshi is drunk." You didn't think much of it and immediately ran over. You helped Yang Qingqing support Su Roshi together. "How did she end up like this?" you asked helplessly. "I don't know either. After you left, we thought we'd finish off the rest of the wine. We didn't want to waste it, but we ended up drinking too much." Yang Chanian didn't expect Su Roshi would end up this drunk. The group walked out of the restaurant. Yang Chanian ran to call the driver to bring the car over. After putting Su Roshi in the car, you immediately breathed a sigh of. Then you sat down as well. Old Cow and Old Jiang went to the internet cafe to play. "We won't be able to get into the dormitory now." Yang Chanian looked inside the car. Now there were just him, you, Yang Qingqing, and Su Roshi. "So what should we do now?" You looked at Yang Qianian and asked. "Qingqing has also drunk too much. Since we can't go back to the dorm, I'll take Qingqing home directly. You take Su Roshi to the hotel. Then you can go to the internet cafe I'll join you later. We'll book a room together." You thought for a moment. It seems like there's no other option. "All right, let's do it this way." A few minutes later, you took Su Roshi to a nearby hotel. You stood at the hotel entrance holding Su Roshi, feeling a bit complicated. You never thought your first time bringing a girl to would be with Su Roshi. You shook your head. You looked at Su Roshi in your arms. Seeing she showed no signs of still completely, you could only support her and slowly walk into the hotel. Meanwhile, on the street not far away, two boys stopped in their tracks, surprised as they looked towards the hotel. Look, look! Isn't that the girl? The guy holding her isn't the same guy you saw at, right? You even delivered water to him during the military training." Hearing this, Zhao Kai immediately turned. "Wow, it really is. But why is Su Roshi here? Looks like she's been drunk by someone." Wang Tao took a closer look. "It really is her." "Well, what are you waiting for? Hurry and go in to help her. Didn't you always say Su Roshi?" "Right," Zhao Kai suddenly realized after hearing Wang Tao. He immediately took off running towards the hotel. He quickly entered the hotel front desk. You took out your ID and booked a suite. Then, supporting Su Roshi, you headed toward the elevator. At that moment, a male voice shouted from the hotel, "Hey you stop right there." You and saw the person was recording you with a phone. After seeing the movement, your brows furrowed immediately. You had no idea what these guys were up to. I warn you, your actions have already been recorded. I warn you, your actions have already been recorded. Put Su Roshi down right now. Otherwise, we'll call the police. Zhao Kai became more and more feeling like he was the embodiment of justice. It seemed like if he saved Su Roshi, she would fall in love with him. "Yeah, if you don't want to go to jail, let go of Su Roshi." Another boy chimed in. Seeing these two naive boys, you ignored them. You turned around and walked into the elevator. "Hey, stop right there." Xie Linfeng didn't bother with them. Zhao Kai tried to rush up with his phone to grab you, but he was stopped by the hotel security. "Sorry, sir. We don't allow filming in our hotel. Please leave immediately. Otherwise, we'll take further action." Zhao Kai and the other boy had no choice but to stop. They stood there glaring at you. You then carried Tsuruoshi into the elevator and disappeared from their sight. After leaving the hotel, Zhao Kai seemed a little frustrated. He had watched helplessly as his goddess was carried into the hotel by someone. It felt incredibly suffocating. It was worse than being cheated on. Wang Tao, what should we do now? Why not just call the police? If we wait any longer, that guy might have already taken advantage. He'll finish and leave. Seeing Zhao Kai taking out his phone to actually call the Wang Tao quickly stopped him. Relax, he said helplessly. Calling the police now would be pointless. What if that guy didn't do anything? Wouldn't that be a false report? And we don't even know who he is. What if he really is Tsuruoshi's boyfriend? We just look like fools. Besides, you have a piece of jewelry. Are you really worried about him causing? After hearing Wang Tao's analysis, Zhao Kai finally calmed. But just thinking about his goddess being in the hotel with his mood was especially complicated. He anxiously asked, what should we do now? We can't just wait here, right? Actually, I have an idea. Wang Tao smiled. He continued, I saw that guy's appearance. He's probably around our age. He should also be from our school. As long as you post the video from on the school forum, someone is bound to recognize him. Once the matter blows up, let's see if that guy dares to act reckless. Anyway, Yangcheng University is a key university. They take the school's reputation seriously. If a student dares to take advantage of take a girl to a hotel and check in, the principal will definitely expel them once they find out. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? Zhao Kai immediately took out his phone and opened the school forum. He started editing the post. Meanwhile, in the hotel, you were helping Tsuruoshi down the hallway, struggling to... it's so hot. At that moment, she was about to unbutton her clothes. You quickly stopped her. Wait, this is still a hallway. Be good, don't move around. You comforted her. Then you hurried towards the end of the hall. You quickly found the suite you had just booked. You opened the door. You gently placed... After all the trouble earlier, Tsuruoshi's clothes were already revealing smooth, delicate skin. It gave off an alluring aura under the light. Seeing this, you couldn't help but feel a bit stirred. In her dazed state, Tsuruoshi suddenly murmured. Then she reached out her arm, hugging you as she sat on the edge of the bed. She leaned her head close to yours, her face pressed against your cheek. I'm so thirsty, I need some water. Give me water, Tsuruoshi. I'm so thirsty, I need some water. Give me water, Tsuruoshi said, her breath fragrant. Feeling the softness of Tsuruoshi's body, your body tensed up immediately. But you still pushed Tsuruoshi away. Then, you picked up the bottled water prepared by the hotel. You brought it to Tsuruoshi's mouth and handed it to her. Tsuruoshi didn't respond at all. She kept mumbling about water near her mouth. I want water. Such a handful. Helpless, you twisted open the bottle cap. You supported her head with one hand and put the bottle to her mouth. When someone is drunk, they're in a semi-conscious state. Even if you pour water into their mouth, they won't swallow it all. A large amount of water spilled from the corner of Tsuruoshi's mouth, soaking the bedsheet. Seeing this, you were a bit speechless. You quickly grabbed a tissue to try and dry the sheet. Seeing Tsuruoshi lying on the bed, still frantically tugging at, not at all looking like she was ready to sleep, you started to have a headache. You had originally planned to drop Tsuruoshi off at the hotel, then go to the internet cafe to find old. But now, with Tsuruoshi in this state, you found it hard to leave her alone. So you took out your phone. You called Yang Qingqing. Hey. Brother Feng, what's up? Yang Qingqing's voice came from the other end of the phone. Her tone suggested she had already sobered up. You didn't waste time. You got straight to the point. Are you free right now? How about you come to the hotel and take care of Ruoshi? I think in her state, it's dangerous to leave her alone here. All right, I just finished shower. I'll change clothes and come over, Yang Qingqing said before hanging up the phone. She then took off her sleepwear and changed into loose clothes. She quickly rushed out of the house. You went into the bathroom to wash your face, to calm yourself down. Then you returned to the room to wait. Knock, knock, knock. Shortly after, there was a knock on the door. You hurriedly went to open the door. Seeing Yang Qingqing standing at the door, you couldn't help but freeze for him. She was wearing a loose t-shirt, her hair still a little damp. She was also wearing denim shorts, showing off 2 sexy legs. She looked incredibly alluring. Seeing Yang Qingqing's wet hair, you couldn't help but ask, why did you come like this? I thought you seemed quite anxious earlier, so I rushed over. Yang Qingqing flipped her hair. Then she looked into the room and asked, how is Ruoshi? You stepped aside to let Yang Qingqing in. See for yourself. Seeing the scene in front of her, Yang Qingqing's eyes widened. She didn't know what to say. Tsuruoshi was lying on the bed, her clothes in disarray. There were wet spots on the bedsheet. There were several used tissues on the bedside table, obviously used to wipe something. Brother Feng, did I interrupt something? Yang Qingqing blushed slightly. She seemed to have thought of something, and subconsciously, hearing this, you were speechless. As expected, anyone who saw this scene would misunderstand. But I really didn't do anything to Tsuruoshi earlier. Seeing the scene, Yang Qingqing hesitated. She wasn't sure if she should leave. Seeing this, you hurriedly spoke up. Don't overthink it. I didn't do anything to her. You stay here with her tonight. I'll go find your brother and the... After saying this, you handed the room card to Yang Qingqing. Then, without looking back, you left the troublesome place. After leaving the hotel, you originally planned to go to the internet, but you were already too tired from everything. If you stayed up any longer, your body might not be... So you called a taxi and went back to the dormitory alone. The next morning, when you groggily woke up, you found several missed calls. It was Yang Jianian who called. You rubbed your eyes and redialed. The phone rang a few times before being answered. You heard Yang Jianian's weak voice and the sound of a keyboard clicking. It seems they are still in an internet cafe. What's up? Why are you calling me so many times? What else? Why didn't you come to the internet cafe last night? Speaking of this, Yang Jianian immediately became excited. I got it. You little guy, what happened between you? How far did things go? You didn't already do it, did you? Hearing this, you wanted to refute, but just you suddenly heard a scream. On the other side of the line, Yang Jining, damn, Feng Ge, back on the school's trending search again? Only then did you hear Cao Ming. After half a month, the guy who once snatched water from Sushi now actually used trying to forcefully take advantage of Tsuruoshi. What's going on here? How come there's a video too? Hearing Cao Ming's voice on the phone, you instinctively recalled you encountered last night with Song when you went to the hotel. At that time, they recorded a video of them. At that time, they filmed themselves on their phones. Could it be that they posted something and uploaded that video as well? Thinking of this, you frowned. If this is true, then you wouldn't be able to clear your name, even if you jumped into. You anxiously asked, what's going on? Can you give me some details? Then you heard Yang Jiani pick up his phone again, sighing. Lao Lin, I don't know how to explain this. You'd better go check the school forum yourself. This time, things are getting a bit serious. If it's not handled well, you might even get expelled. Hearing Yang Jianian's words, you could basically confirm that it was those two guys from last night who caused the trouble. Lao Lin, don't panic. I'll call Qingqing and ask what's going on. You stay at school for now. We'll come back to find you. After saying that, Yang Jianian, you sat in the chair and opened the forum to check. The public opinion on the internet now was completely one-sided. Even if Ling Feng stood up to explain, probably very few people would listen. Meanwhile, Yang Qin, who received a call from Yang Jianian. Hello? Hey Qingqin, are you at the hotel now? Yang Jianian's anxious voice came from the other side of the phone. Has Tsuruoshi woken up yet? Yang Qin rubbed her eyes and looked at Tsuruoshi, still sound. Not yet. She woke up in the middle of the night to throw up. She's still sleeping now. Brother, what's going on? Why are you in such a hurry? Yang Jianian hesitated, then said, wait until she wakes up. Make sure she goes back to school. As for the specifics, I can't explain. I have to call Lao Lin. After saying that, he hung up. What's going on? Why is he being so mysterious? Hearing the busy tone on the phone, Yang Qingqing complained a little unhappy. What the heck? Why is he being so cryptic? Hearing the busy tone, Yang Qingqing. Then she opened the school forum, logged into her account, and once she entered the forum, she saw the video pinned. She clicked on it and was immediately startled. Her expression was, my God, what on earth is going on? Her expression was one of complete, my God, what on earth is going on? Yang Qingqing finally understood now why Yang Jianian was so agitated earlier. Because if this matter wasn't handled well, the school would not only expel Lin Feng, he might even become the target of an online store. You were present the whole time last night, and Lin Feng didn't do anything to Tsuruoshi. But under this post, the netizens didn't think so. They all lashed out at Lin Feng. saying they would seek justice for Su and expel the scumbag Lin Feng from school. Seeing this, Yang Qingqing immediately panicked. She glanced at Su Roxi, who was still soundly asleep in bed. She wanted to wake her up, but then she hesitated. She instead took out her phone and called Lin Feng. You answered the phone. Qingqing, what's wrong? After just finishing the call with Yang Jianian, you had already figured out how to resolve this, so now your tone was much calmer. What's going on? Should I wake Su Roxi up and have her go back to school now? If Su Roxi is willing to testify, this matter should be fine. Yang Qingqing said anxiously. You smiled faintly and reassured her, it's fine. Qingqing, let her rest well. I've already come up with a solution for this matter. After this, you'll know that none of these friends were made in vain. At least the brothers in the dorm and Yang Qingqing truly care about you. At least the brothers in the dormitory and Yang Qingqing truly care about you.